You booked it, episode 162. What's going on, everyone? Thank you for joining me today on You Booked It, the #1 podcast where you learn how to create a successful entertainment career. Every episode is a masterclass on how to move your career forward. Do you want to take your career to the next level? As a listener of this podcast, I am offering you the opportunity to work one-on-one with me to build the foundation of what you need to create a successful career in today's world. Regardless if you're starting out or you've been doing this a while, I've got you covered. Look, when I entered this industry, I went to the #1 school in the USA for musical theater, graduated with an insane skill set, and zero clue about how to actually make my skills a career. I lost years of momentum because of it. Do not let this happen to you. That's why I created this podcast. That's why I'm making you this offer to coach with me. If you're interested, simply tap the link in the description of this episode and let's chat. Okay, let's get started. I am excited to introduce my guest today, JJ Niemann. Are you ready for this?
Oh, I'm so ready.
Brilliant. JJ is a New York City-based actor, Broadway performer, choreographer, and coach. After growing up in Wilmington, North Carolina, JJ graduated in 2017 with a BFA in music theater from Elon University. Shortly after, he joined the Broadway cast of The Book of Mormon as a swing, where he has been performing for the majority of the past 3 years. Most recently, JJ was in developmental workshops and the world premiere of the new musical Bliss, which made its debut in February at the Fifth Avenue Theater in Seattle. Aside from developmental readings and workshops, JJ has performed regionally at theaters like the Muni, Pittsburgh CLO, Bay Street Theater, Art Park, and Grand Street Theater. In addition to performing, JJ teaches his own dance classes in the city called Jazzing with JJ and coaches regularly at the Broadway Collective's programs including Hello Broadway, Gathered, and Pre-Screen Prep. He also recently became an avid TikTok creator, reaching over 400,000 followers and 80 million views with his Broadway and theater comedy videos. He was named one of Broadway World's top 10 TikTokers and was also featured on CBS's The Greatest at Home videos. JJ, that is a quick intro of who you are and what you've done, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, fill in the gaps, and a little bit more about what you do as a professional in the entertainment industry?
Absolutely. Thank you for that introduction. I appreciate it.
Indeed.
Yeah, so I grew up, I originally am from Annapolis, Maryland. I was born there and did a show as young as I possibly could. I turned 8 years old, which is how old you had to be in the children's theater shows there. And I did Charlotte's Web. I played Avery, the bratty little brother, and I just absolutely had the theater bug. I knew from the youngest age, I was like, this is my tribe. This is what I want to be doing. Just because I loved it so much and I grew up around the arts. My whole family was involved in theater. My parents ran their own Christian theater company called Hosanna Players, putting on biblical shows. And so I would see all these rehearsals and just was like, I want to do this so badly.
Yeah.
So yeah, then I moved to Wilmington, North Carolina when I was 9, and there wasn't any professional theater there, but a ton of community theaters, 15 or so. So I was doing shows year round there.
Cool.
When I was growing up. Yeah, I got to do a ton. And that's basically what most of my training was, just doing shows for fun. And then, yeah, when I basically was like, I want to do this as a career, I decided to audition for colleges, went to Elon, like you said, which was the best 4 years of my life. And yeah, and so I was a swing in Book of Mormon and now just working in the city and doing all of those things, all the actor things.
For sure. And let's dig into this first section here. And JJ, look, I am a sucker for a good quote. What is your favorite quote you'd like to share with everyone?
Okay, so this is a little corny, and I know everybody says this, but the quote, "be yourself because everybody else is already taken," is something that really resonates with me in the sense that, people are going to say things about you and make judgments about you and have an opinion about you, no matter who you are. If you live the quietest, most simple, reclusive life, somebody somewhere will still make a judgment about you. So allowing those kind of things to prevent you from pursuing what you want, from making art or being who you truly are at your core and presenting that way is just total BS. There's no reason to have fear of that and let that control you. And I feel like I did for a long time because growing up, I was making YouTube videos and content online when I was like 12, 13, 14. And obviously the internet's brutal. And when I was really young, the bullying and stuff got to me and prevented me from continuing to make those in high school and college. And who knows what would have been, but I hid away from doing that kind of stuff because I was so scared of people out there judging me and calling me gay slurs or things like that. I just was like, it's better to just not do anything at all. And now here I am, like, making content that is being seen by millions of people. And I'm just like, I've thankfully gotten to a place where I'm like, people are going to say something about you no matter what. So you might as well do what you love and just put yourself out there.
People are going to say something about you no matter what. So just do it. I love that mentality, and it's so true. You have nothing to lose if people are going to be mean. There's always that group of people, always. So I guess the funny part or the ironic part about it is when you do put yourself out there, sure, you're going to get some negative comments. That is an inevitability. But you're also going to attract the people that love what you do.
Yes.
For
sure.
And you just latch onto that and roll with that because you're making it for yourself and you're making it for those people. Who cares about everyone else?
Absolutely. I agree.
Yes. And let's get into this next section here. And JJ, of course, you are an entertainer. I'm an entertainer. And I think that you'd agree that this industry can be one of the most subjective, brutally honest, personally emotional industries in existence. And you know as well as I that in order to create and have a successful career in this industry like you're having now takes a lot of dedication and hard work. And while, there's an outrageous amount of fun and excitement doing what we do, there are also our fair share of obstacles, challenges, and failures we are going to experience and we're going to have to move forward through. So tell us, what is one key challenge, obstacle, or failure you've experienced in your career, and how did you come out the other side better because of it?
Yeah, I think a lot of us battle types of things, and the business and what we do is so physically demanding and rigorous. And there got to a point, like when I was growing up, no shade to my old teachers, but I feel like I don't feel like, I know I was taught some incorrect techniques that really harmed me vocally and things like that. I at the time just thought, this is what I have. This is all I can do. This is how I sing, without knowing how to properly use my instruments. So thank God for training and for all of that, because I had voice teachers that like whipped me into shape and got me ready to do 8 show weeks on Broadway. But that was a really big hurdle. And I remember like finishing my first 8 show week on Broadway and just like breaking down crying because I remembered back to a time at school when I was a freshman and I like couldn't vocally get through a certain song in a show. And I literally in the middle of the dress rehearsal ran off stage, like ball, and went to the bathroom and bawled. And people were so sweet and consoling me. But like in moments like that, it's our voice is such a big part of who we are. And when you feel like that's at risk, it just feels like a part of you is missing. And so I was so emotional, like getting to the healthy vocal place that I've gotten to and getting to be like, I'm doing 8 show weeks on Broadway. I'm doing incredibly rigorous. Like Book of Mormon is the hardest show I think I've ever sung. And I was like, I'm doing it. Like, I'm so proud of that work. And so that was a really big hurdle. I think that was years in the making, but something that I'm so glad that I put the work and time in and had the teachers I had.
Yeah, for sure. And you're doing it 8 shows a week and you're doing it healthily, right?
Yeah.
A lot to be said about that. Because here's the thing, a lot of people, I think, sometimes get disillusioned with the idea that, hey, if I want to be on Broadway, let's say that's your dream. I want to be on Broadway. We get to Broadway and you make it, and then you envision that once you've made it to Broadway, that's it. But it's not it.
No.
You get there and you're like, this is amazing, great. And then your career, you're not just set for life. You know what I mean?
Right,
you have to continue working. You have to keep showing up. You also are going to probably want to be in another show eventually. So you have to be auditioning, and it's a
Hmm.
career of doing this. You have arrived, but then you continue to grow and you continue to evolve. A lot of people, I think, will sometimes get the idea that's what they're trying to achieve, and they'll do anything to get there, even if it means physically damaging themselves, their voice or their body to get there. And no one show,
Yeah.
no handful of shows or contracts is worth jeopardizing the longevity of your career, because if you destroy it to the point where you really can't recover, then that's it.
Yeah. It's a marathon.
Yeah, you have to take the time to learn how to do things healthily and always be checking in with yourself so you can have that wonderful, fulfilling, long career that you've always really, truly envisioned.
Right. Absolutely.
For sure. And let's move on to a time that I like to call your spotlight moment. That one moment in time you realized, yes, I am going to be an entertainer for a living, or maybe it was, yes, this is what I need to be doing as an entertainer. Tell us about that.
Yeah. I have two. The first
Great.
one being the summer before my senior year of high school.
Mm-hmm.
I did a production of Hairspray, and it was with a big director from New York and someone that was the most professional experience I had at that time. And he, at closing night, maybe it was opening night, but he pulled my parents aside and was like, "Your son really has a special gift. And if he wants to do this as a career, he can." And opened my parents' mind about like conservatories and colleges, and going to college and training for it. And at that moment, I was like, that was when we were like, okay, yeah, I guess this is something we can do. I had never considered doing it as a career, really. So that was my aha moment, being like transitioning into then trying to get into some coachings and preparing for those college auditions.
Right.
But in terms of while I was at school, my sophomore year of college, we have a class that's like performance in musical theater, and it's all about acting through song and storytelling. And I really was so closed off for a while. Ironically, I'm a very outgoing and friendly person, but that can sometimes be a facade for hiding from a lot of other ways. So my sophomore year, we were doing this acting through the song class, and that was the time that it really clicked with me, of fully letting go and realizing like how to like learning how to open up and tell a story through song, how to process my own past, my emotions. And being like growing up gay in a conservative place, you build up all of these walls, and realizing that you can use so much of that. And if you break down those walls and tap into that beautiful part of the human heart, you can channel that. And that's what people want to see when they see theater. That's what they want to experience. And so I realized that I can, provide that for people and also use it as a form of kind of opening up in therapy.
Beautiful. Love both of those. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
let's piggyback on that question real quick and talk about your number one booked it moment. Walk us through that day, the auditions and callbacks, if they happen to be a part of it. What was going on in your life, and what about that moment makes it your favorite booked it moment?
Yeah, I love to talk about this moment because it was like a Cinderella story, audition story, and it's really cool to be able to talk about it years later and realize
Yeah.
how kooky it is. But my senior year of college, we at Elon bring casting directors and agents to campus instead of doing a New York showcase. So we were bringing down, that's how I ended up signing with my agents, CGF Talent. And I got in front of Stephen Copel, who's an associate of Carrie Gardner, who casts Book of Mormon. And so they reached out to me, I think in maybe April, to send in a video submission, doing a cut song from the show, your own song, tap, a few scenes, all of those things. So I submitted my video and got a call back in New York for Book of Mormon. And yeah, let's see. I got the call back, and it was like a day after I graduated college. So I graduated college
Cool.
on Saturday, May 20th or something like that. And then I flew to New York the next morning. Like I packed my apartment, all of that, flew to New York the next day, was able to stay with my friend. And actually, 5 or 6 of my classmates, we all went up together to this callback. And I then had the callback on Monday. Went in, did basically all the same stuff, but then had all the dance calls and we're learning the tap combo, jazz combo, and got a call from my agents to come back the next day. And they were like, make sure he looks a little too contemporary. So make sure he dresses in like a collared shirt and all that stuff, not a tank top, all those things. So then I came in the next day. I didn't know it was a final callback because they're always building their files for tour, Broadway, all those things. So I didn't really know, didn't think much of it. So I went in, did all the same things for the team. And then they also pulled us into another room to do what I later learned was the swing test, which was they taught us, like 3 of us, a combo really quickly to see how detail oriented we were and how quickly we could pick it up. And so I just honestly nailed all of it. It was like just meant to be. And I was exactly what they needed in that moment. And later that day found out from my agents, they're going to send the video to Casey Nicola and all the people who have to sign off on it. But you basically have the job. They just have to have the final people sign off. And if you do get the job, you start tomorrow. And I was like, okay. And also, meanwhile, the head of my program at Elon called me and she was like, did you just go in for this casting director, Carrie Gardner? And I was like, yeah, why? And she was like, and then she called me. She was like, don't freak out. But she just called me asking as a reference, because I guess they knew each other, they're friends. And she was like, can we trust this 21-year-old kid to be a swing and cover 7 roles? Is he organized? Can he do this? And I was actually the head of my program's assistant. So I was like the one responding to all her emails and all of those things, helping run audition days and all those things. And so she was like, he will show up day 1 with like color-coded notes and everything. He will be ready. And so I was like, okay, well, you spoke that into existence. So I got to keep up that promise. And so I ended up having an audition the next day for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory for an immediate replacement. And I went to that audition, even though I knew basically I was going to be doing this other job, but I went to it and got cut immediately. And I just wasn't right for the track that they were looking for and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, so this is more New York. This is more like what I expected to just be cut immediately. But I came out of that audition and had a voicemail from my agents that I booked Book of Mormon. And they were like, call us back immediately. And I started rehearsals that day. They were like, get to the theater at 3:00. You're going to start rehearsals in the music room, learning the vocals. And I was just thrown into it. And I was supposed to do shows like at the Muni and Main State Music Theater. And I had 3 months of work that I had to cancel all of it and immediately start rehearsals. And I didn't even have a place to live. And I had to figure out, it was like crazy. And I was just thrown. So that's a pretty crazy booked it moment for sure.
I would say so. That is wild. Bonkers even. Jeez.
Yeah.
Way cool though. And you said a couple things in there. You said when you said you went to the final callback, you said, I didn't realize it was a final callback. I just went in there and said, all right, let's just do my thing. And that mentality, that energy has been a through line, something very consistent that keeps coming up in this podcast, that when people are booking their jobs, those big shows, it's when they have that vibe and feeling going into the room, they just are themselves, they're present. And I think that's such a huge takeaway that this podcast is really highlighting for all of you aspiring entertainers out there, or even those of you that are listening to this that are in the meat of your career and going, I feel like I'm a little bit in a rut, to just get that reminder that, hey, it's all about being present, being relaxed, being chill in that room and just giving yourself, doing you. And I'm so glad that you brought that up because it's really fortifying. That is a fundamental to what helps create a successful career and helps book big jobs.
Oh yeah. And when you're like really high stakes about something and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to be in this show. This is it for me. Like the times that I have been like that, I've not been able to sleep the night before. So I'm ragged tired because I have so much anxiousness and anxiety about it. And then, maybe I end up getting to the final callback, but then you're so heartbroken when you don't get it because you've built this up in your mind that this is your job, but it's not your job. What's meant to be your work and what's meant for you is not going to pass you by. So you have to like trust that.
For sure. Case in point with Book of Mormon, you got wrapped up in that whirlwind. You were exactly what they needed at that exact time. And that's wonderful. And you just were present enough to show up for them. And then, like you said, the next day you went to the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. You were like, boom, cut right away. You go, whoop, there we go. Look at that. And that's the way it is. And you really can't take those things personally because you're either what they're looking for or you're not. There are so many more factors that are outside of yourself and what you can bring to the table that it's not even worth worrying about.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. And let's take a moment to talk about the present. What projects are you working on now? What are you looking forward to? And hey, it's a weird time, right? We are amidst this global pandemic. How do you see the entertainment industry moving forward in the next couple of years?
Yeah. So right before the pandemic hit, I was doing the world premiere of Bliss in Seattle at the Fifth Avenue Theater. That was my first like original cast world premiere moment. I did the workshop of it in October 2018, did a reading of it in May 2019. And then, yeah, we rehearsed December, January, and ran January, February. And I can't believe we got our full run in before COVID and everything. I was so thankful. Like looking back, I'm like, that is just such a blessing that we got to do that. And the show was like, just, it definitely has a life. I'll say that. It definitely has a lot of investments and stuff coming in. And their plan is to be in New York when all is said and done and when all of this is over. So I'm really excited to hopefully continue with that. And that was a really cool experience to get to like understudy a lead role for the first time. I also got to help create a lot of the choreography because you're like truly developing a show from scratch.
Mm.
And choreography is something that I really ultimately want to do in my career. So I'm really thankful I got to do a little bit of that. But yeah, we were in Seattle when the first COVID cases in the US were announced in Seattle. And it ended up being people in my cast had it and got
What?
it while we were there, but didn't realize that they had it. They were just like, oh, I have flu-like symptoms, but I don't have the flu, so I don't know. And we were all like, okay, whatever. So that's the biggest development thing I've been working on. But I also, during this quarantine, started making TikTok videos, literally just because I was bored. I was living with my family in North Carolina, and I was wanting an artistic outlet. And people just started loving my theater related humor, and I found a niche for myself and now have built a huge audience. I'm doing a lot of paid promotions and things like that, and getting invited to do really awesome podcasts like this. I'm so thankful to be on this. So that has provided a lot of and really genuinely opened a lot of doors, and hopefully will continue to. So yeah, that's basically been a big passion project. And then of course I've been able to continue coaching during all of this. And now I coach with also Broadway Plus and Artists and Beyond. So I'm working with a lot of different coaching agencies. And it was really cool to get 35 different students through the pre-screen process. I was their dance coach with the Broadway Collective, and getting to talk to them, and they're getting callbacks and getting seen for all of these different colleges, and getting to help other artists like reach their goals and their dreams is so fulfilling. I'm so thankful to get to do that now during this time.
Very cool. And how did you enjoy Seattle and working in Seattle? That's a very different market from New York.
It is. I loved it. And the Fifth Avenue Theater is incredible. I was there, like, we were there, not the best time of the year to be there because it was very cold and very rainy. And because we were there teching a new show, that was my first experience doing anything like that. And it was absolutely brutal. And our show had so many tech elements that actually they had to cancel several shows because our automation and all of it's like a fantasy fairy
Yeah.
tale spectacle. And so a lot of stuff was breaking. And so it was really frustrating at first. And they had to cancel shows. And then we ended up adding them basically to make up for that. And at the time, I was like, this is so sad. We had to cancel 4 or 5 shows. But looking now, I was like, the amount of shows that had to get canceled because of COVID, I was like, I can't even complain. Like, we got to do our run. But I loved Seattle, what I got to see of it. And I would love to go back for sure.
Yeah, very cool. And it is time to move on to one of my favorite sections in the interview. I call it the Grease Lightning Round.
Yes.
I am going to ask you a handful of questions. I want you to answer them as quickly and concisely as possible, one after another. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right, first question. What was the one thing holding you back from committing to a career as an entertainer?
Fear. I'll just say that fear of not being good enough, fear of like rejection and all of those things. Yeah. And just it's a vast industry. So fear would be the number one thing.
Yes, second question. What is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
Ooh, I think that there are so many renditions of songs and musicals and things done out there. Nobody needs to hear you like JJ singing Jeremy Jordan's version of Santa Fe or JJ singing Aaron Tveit's version of Next to Normal. People want to hear you for the first time and see what you bring to the role. That's the entire reason that you're there auditioning. Bring yourself to the role and don't try to imitate what other people have done, even though that's successful, but don't do it.
Third question, what is something that is working for you right now? Or if you'd like to go pre-COVID, what was working for you before our industry went on pause?
Yeah, before the industry went on pause and I was working consistently, my biggest thing was finding the balance between a little bit of chaos, which like we all have in our lives, stuff happens, but finding the balance between that and a really solid routine, because it's important to be doing your yoga, doing your workouts and vocal exercises and getting your body and voice in alignment every day, ready, before you do the show. Don't let that be your warm up is doing the show. You need to like properly have a routine and be in shape and vocally ready and physically ready to do what you got to do.
Yes, well said. Always stay ready. And the fourth question, what is your best resource? Whether that is a book, a movie, a YouTube video, maybe a podcast or piece of technology you found is helping your career right now.
Yeah, there's so many out there. Something that I've really enjoyed is a friend of mine, Clay, has a podcast, Entertainment X, and he does a lot of interviews with people. And so that's been really cool. And when the industry was like really happening, that was really cool to hear from different casting directors I've been in for, hear their experiences and what they look for. And also like my agent, one of my agents was a guest, and to get to hear their experience as an agent, it gives you a broader picture of other aspects of the industry and other roles that you wouldn't necessarily know and be able to be in their mindset.
Yeah, very cool. And the fifth question, if you had to start your career from scratch, but you still had all the knowledge and experience you've collected from your career in this industry, what would you do or not do? Would you do anything differently or would you keep it the same?
Yeah, I definitely would change some things. Like I really wish I was in ballet classes and really getting a hold of my technique from a young age. I didn't seriously train in dance technique wise until college. I just did shows for fun, which, that's awesome. And I'm glad I had a wonderful childhood. But I really wish that I had been a little more proactive about that, because if I could just be like this much more flexible and this much more technical, then I might have been able to open more doors. But ultimately, I'm happy with how everything turned out in the long run.
Ah, beautiful. And the last question, what is the golden nugget knowledge drop you've learned from your successful career in this industry you'd like to leave with our listeners?
Ooh, that's a hard one. Ultimately, if telling my booked it story and all those things mean anything, it's just that what's meant for you will not pass you by. And when it's right, it's right. Like what's meant to be and what's meant to happen to you in your life, what you're meant to do will happen if you are present, you're doing the work and you're there. And you cannot get bogged down in the things that don't go your way, because that was never yours. That's not yours. That's not your path. And you can carve a new one. You can, seek out other opportunities. So just have faith in the universe or God or whatever higher power you believe in, and just be able to trust that when all is said and done.
Beautiful. Such fantastic advice. I would recommend everyone rewind that and have it another listen. Very good. And to wrap up this interview, JJ, it is time to give yourself a plug. Where can we find you? How do our listeners connect with you? Is there anything you want to promote?
Yeah, you can check me out on Instagram and TikTok at JJ Niemann. That's JJNIEMANN. I'm also having some merch that I'm going to be releasing soon, which is so silly to me, but people have been asking me to do it. So I'm doing some fun little merch related to my videos. And yeah, you can also check me out. The link is in all of my bios on my socials, on my link tree, if you want to do a coaching or Q&A or genuinely anything. We're all just trying to find ways to connect and grow and learn. So I am more than happy to do that with anybody. But yeah, that's it for now.
Brilliant. And for everyone listening out there, I have put the links to everything JJ just said into the description of this episode so you can easily connect with him. And be sure to share this podcast with your fellow entertainers, coaches, teachers, arts and entertainment educators, and anyone you know aspiring to create a career in this industry. You Booked It is the #1 resource of expertise on how to actually create a successful entertainment career. Case in point, everything JJ just dropped today in this episode. So many fantastic, actionable insights. And if you enjoyed this episode, please hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next time. JJ, thank you so much for your time coming on and sharing everything you did.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't miss an episode. Every guest drops more value and insight than any other resource out there. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love to hear from you. Leave us a rating and review. Also, be sure to head over to youbookeditpodcast.com and join our free email community where we dig deep into a continually growing resource of truly actionable things you can be doing right now to help you advance your entertainment career. All the best to you.